Hi, everybody, and a very good morning to you all. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and welcome to this morning's Accentuate by K3 Hub session, where we'll be hosting a LinkedIn masterclass. For those who haven't met me before, my name is Marie Wadeson. I'm a managing director at Quantuma, and on behalf of our parent company, the K3 Capital Group, I'm also responsible for the K3 Hub. I think there should be some information on the screen about what the K3 Hub is for those that aren't familiar. So in a break from convention, I'm actually chairing this session this morning from a hotel room in Glasgow, where last night a number of the Quantuma team, along with colleagues from around K3, joined our Scottish colleagues to mark our 5 years in Scotland anniversary. So just over breakfast this morning with some colleagues, I learned that last night we completed on a pre-packed sale of a business in Peterborough, where we saved over 50 jobs, which is a great way to start a Friday morning. Apparently, we've got another 3 pre-packs completing this morning with well over 200 jobs being saved. Another great way to start a Friday. And I also learned last night as well that we're nudging ever closer to completing the sale of the Dumbarton Football Club, which will see one of Scotland's oldest football clubs emerge from administration. So a great way to start a Friday for us here. On to today's session and a few bits of housekeeping for you. So we are recording today's session and the webinar will be hosted on the K3 Hub and Quantuma websites next week. If you wish to go back and refer to anything that Joe discusses today. I think on this basis, we're not going to share the slides on this occasion. Q&A function is open, and I have the pleasure of chairing the Q&A session. I'm going to put those questions to Joe at the end of the session. If you could use a Q&A rather than the chat, that would be great, just so I've got all of your questions in one place. And I believe that Joe is going to begin her presentation with a poll, so please do get involved in that. Introducing our guest speaker, and in that case, so very pleased to welcome back my colleague, Joe Edwards. Joe is principal of the JE Consulting business, which is an award-winning marketing agency which specialises in providing marketing assistance to professional services firms. JE Consulting, as I've already alluded to, also happens to be our sister company here at Quantuma and a fellow K3 Capital Group company. Joe has very significant marketing experience and works with a wide range of professional services firms, and has a particular specialism in preparing and delivering online and social media strategies to clients. She's helped many firms generate new clients, develop profitable strategies, and cross-sell to existing clients through innovative e-marketing programs. So in today's masterclass, Joe will be covering how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, growing your network, creating engaging and relevant posts, and using LinkedIn to generate new clients. So Joe tells me that today is a hands-on practical session. So let's all strap in for a learning experience. And if you're in a position to do so, why not fire up a browser and open up LinkedIn so you can try out Joe's tips as we go. Joe, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Marie. And thanks to everybody for joining this morning. So we've got about, I think we've got till 10 o'clock. So I'm hoping everybody's got LinkedIn open if you have, if you're able to, or not, if you haven't, get a pen and paper. I want you to walk away from this session today with a list of things to do. I'm going to make it very practical. So we're not just going to have a death by PowerPoint. I'm going to jump in and out of slides into LinkedIn, into showing you some different sorts of content that you could be looking at. So apologies as I dive in and out of sharing my screen. I hope not to make you too dizzy by the end of this. So before we kick off, I think that let's set the ground. I think it's important to understand the benefits of LinkedIn and why we should even be playing in this sandpit at all. There are lots of social media platforms that you could be producing content for. So why should you put LinkedIn front and center? I think if you go back to the history of LinkedIn and where it actually started originally as a recruitment platform. And I know lots of my clients would turn around to me and say, well, it still is. All of our staff and team get targeted by recruiters on LinkedIn all the time. You're never going to stop that happening. It's just the way things are. But because of its millions and millions of profiles and active profiles on here, it makes it, for professional services, a very interesting platform to get personally involved in. So as a marketing person, got to love a few stats. These came from HubSpot, where they did a bit of research into how effective LinkedIn it actually is for lead generation. Results from that on the screen here, 277% more effective than X or Facebook. Visitors are 4 times more likely to visit your website from your LinkedIn profile. So if you post content in a clever and engaging way with a good call to action that leads back to your website, the chances are that if that post has engaged with the reader, they're going to visit your website as a result of that. Interestingly, when you look at your website statistics at the end of every month, if you look at the Google dashboard, it will show you referring sites. And if you and your team are active on your personal profiles, LinkedIn should be sitting in that top 10 of referring websites to your referring channels to your website. So maybe have a look at that, and it will give you a good indication of just how proactive your business is, your team is on LinkedIn at the moment. LinkedIn users have a much higher than average income profile. Yep, got to like that. Especially in the professional services arena. It's a rich CRM tool. I've mentioned Google already, but one of the things to remember with Google is that Google likes relevant and relatable content and will rank relevant and relatable content on page 1 above anything else. The only way to get above that is to pay for a sponsored ad. So if you're looking to be on page 1 organically of Google, LinkedIn is a great place to put your content and get it ranked effectively by Google. So things like blogs, and we'll come on to talk about that. It's also a great platform to improve your personal brand and establish yourself as a credible expert in the field in which you work. And again, as part of this session, I want to have a chat about personal branding and just look at some ways in which you can action things as a result of today to start improving your own personal brand. So just moving on from there, before you kind of go away and start thinking about your LinkedIn actions, one of the things I think is really important is to set some LinkedIn goals. It's understanding why you want to spend what effectively could be chargeable time on the LinkedIn platform. So are you here to generate leads? Do you want to use LinkedIn as a way of getting new clients to talk to you? Do you want to use LinkedIn to find people to collaborate with? So this could be, complementary service providers who can introduce you to their clients, where you can do some joint marketing or BD together. Are you there to build personal brand awareness? Do you want to be known so that people come to you for commentary, that people come to you to be an expert speaker at their events, or choose you over your competitor because you're seen to have that credible personal brand? Or are you using it to gather market intelligence? And that could be about your competition. It could be market intelligence for recruitment purposes. So I'm going to ask for a poll to be launched at this point and to ask you what your LinkedIn goals are. And it could be all of the above. So just take a few seconds and participate in that poll. And that will help me gear the hands-on stuff that I show you today. When you're ready, have a look at this. Okay, we've got a good mix here. This is great. So about 25% of you want to generate leads. Smaller number want to find people to collaborate with. Personal brand awareness, good number, that's great. And gather market intelligence, a bit smaller, I do imagine that. And then all of the above, yeah, nearly half of you. So that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll give the hands-on session to bits of all of those, but perhaps less on market intelligence based on that number. Thanks, Helen. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to get into LinkedIn in a minute and pick up on that first agenda point that Marie mentioned, which is all about optimizing your profile. Just hinging back to lead generation for a second, one of the things to think about with LinkedIn is how you're going to build a target audience for your connections. So I want you to be thinking about what's the job title or the function of the business or of the individual rather that you want to be building a connection with, and that will help when we get into the practical session of building connections. Think about the industries or sectors that are most appropriate to you and your work type. Think about the size of business that's important for you, or the income profile of an individual, and also geography. So where are they based? And perhaps just make a couple of notes now that sit around that target audience list. And when I get into the practical session in LinkedIn, I don't need to come back to this slide to regroup on that one. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing slides for a second, and we're going to dive into LinkedIn and pick up on that first agenda point, which is all about optimizing your profile. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen and we'll go on to LinkedIn. So I'm hoping you can all see that effectively. All right. Okay, so I'm on the home screen at the moment, as you can see. Before we dive into the profile, I think there's a couple of things to think about that protect your profile from the competition and from what I'm going to call irrelevant connections. So we'll start off by just going into this section here, which is called the Me section. There's a drop-down menu, and I can go into settings and privacy at this point. So this is where I can set everything up that allows me to control, if you like, who is viewing my connections, who can download my email, and things like that. If we go into, first of all, visibility, you've got here a number of things that you can change. So first of all, your profile viewing options. If I just click on this, you'll often see when you look at your analytics on LinkedIn, who's viewed your profile. If you are doing some market intelligence, you're looking at your competition or you're doing a bit of recruiting, you might not want them to see that you've been looking at their profile. So if that's the case, just switch over to private mode while you go and do your stalking, and it will only show up that you've been an anonymous LinkedIn member that's visited the profile. And you can switch that on and off. Generally, mine is always set to my name and headline because I generally want people to know that I'm looking at them. I'm in a sales and BD role, so it's important that they see me. I've got some visibility. But if there's a reason not to be seen, you can switch it on and off here. You can also see here that you've got who can see or download your email address. Yeah. And you're given options here where it's only visible to you, so people can't data scrape on LinkedIn and download your email. Or in my case, I'm happy for anybody that I'm connected to in the first being they've invited me to connect and I've accepted, or I've invited them to connect and they've accepted. So we've got that first relationship. I'm happy that they've got access to my email address. Yeah. You may be in the position where you want everybody to be able to download it. You want that flexibility. So, and again, you can change and chop that around as and when you wish. The other one that I look at is who can see connections. So this is quite important, and it's a question that I'm often asked by legal firms predominantly, which is if we're going to go and connect to lots of clients, I don't really want anybody else, particularly competitors, to see who I'm connected to. So you don't have to make your connections visible to anybody. You can switch that off. And that doesn't allow people to see your connections database at all. Yeah, it's quite helpful, particularly as there are lots of businesses out that do lots of data scraping on LinkedIn, where they're gathering email addresses and linking them back to an individual and then sending emails saying, oh, I know that you know Joe. So I would have said maybe 18 months ago, make your connections visible. It's in the spirit of LinkedIn. This is what you want to build collaboration. I've probably veered the other way now because of data scraping tools. So this is all about protecting your hard-won connections and your email addresses. So just a couple of things there that help protect your hard-won work. So I'm going to go into profile now. So I've moved off the home page, gone into my profile. Let's just have a look at how you can optimize your profile. Apologies if some of you are really active on LinkedIn. Some of what I'm showing today is advanced. Some of what I'm showing is basic. So bear with me because we've got a very mixed audience today. Couple of things on your profile. You've got the opportunity to have a nice image banner at the top of your profile. I always think that should be representative of who you work for. It should be representative of your core strap line of what you do. Yeah. And make sure that you embed a URL to your website into that banner. And when we talk about how do you get people to visit the website as a result of your activity on LinkedIn, making it easy for people to click on the website is really important. So get that embedded in, a nice picture. Your profile photograph should be a professional headshot. We don't want pictures of you on the beach or walking the dog. Yeah, I am a believer that LinkedIn is a professional networking environment. It's not a typical social media platform. So if you want to be taken seriously, have a decent headshot photo put in there. The verification tool here, that's really about ensuring that you're not a fake profile. So verification stamp, you have to upload identification information and checks are done to make sure that you are who you say you are. I would do that just on the basis that it shows you're real and you've been checked out. This next section here, which I'm just going to highlight, this is a field that's attributed to your job title. Now, I mentioned Google earlier, and Google likes LinkedIn. It's got millions of pages of content, so Google's robots will always cache LinkedIn on a very regular basis. For lead generation, if you want to be found on LinkedIn or even found on Google, this job title is the first field that the Google robots will generally cache. So rather than just having your job title, think about commentary in here of if somebody's searching on LinkedIn or searching on Google, what are they going to look for to find you? And the chances are it won't be managing director or business development manager or whatever your title might be. They'll be using a long search phrase like I'm looking for a marketing expert in professional services, or I'm looking for a corporate lawyer that can help us with a commercial contract, or I'm looking for an accountant that specializes in R&D. So change your job title to a search phrase that you want to be found for on Google or LinkedIn. Don't ask me why, but if you put your website address ahead of that, it makes it more attractive to the Google robots. So again, just a quick tip there, put your website address before that narrative. Moving on, so the About Us page, again, you go back on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, and this would be, a career history that probably spanned about 6,000 words for most people. It was really boring generally. It's now changed, and there's a word count maximum for this section. So you've got to be really careful about how and what you put into this section. So again, we want to make this content here really attractive to Google. So first thing is put your website address at the top. Your first section is, and the page is about breaking this down to make it easy to read. So generally people will read in a Z fashion, yeah? And you want biteable chunks that make it very quick and easy for skim reading. So your first section should be a sentence that says who you are and what you do. Your second section needs to back that up. So you can make this slightly longer, yeah? A couple of sentences, good paragraph on your experience, who you work with, your approach to how you work, and what you're going to do for the reader of your profile. And then rather than lots of text, I would break this next section down into bullet points. So this is broken down now into what are my specialisms, or what does our business do? Yes, it doesn't have to be just about what you do as an individual. Break that down into the services of your firm. And then the final thing is give a good call to action, get in touch with a DM, visit the website. If you offer a free consultation, make it front and center. The featured section, I use this for marketing collateral. So if you've got PDF brochures, flyers, useful presentations, useful white papers, whatever collateral you've got, put it into this featured section, and include in here as well, if you've been published in the press, for example, have that information in there as well. So this is all making it easy for people to get the various assets that help them make a decision as to whether they should use you. Obviously, your activities, your posts, we'll come on to that in a bit. The next section to focus on really is the recommendations. So I always recommend having between 10 to 15 recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. Try and update them as often as you can. Yeah. I tend to have a reach out perhaps every 6 months to clients and ask them if they would give me a new recommendation. And the way to ask for them on LinkedIn, you have to be connected to the individual that you're asking in the first degree. And if you want a new one, you just use the plus button, ask for a recommendation, and you can search for people that you're connected to, and then a wizard will take you through that process. If that individual responds and gives you a recommendation, that will show up in your messages, yeah, here. And you've got the opportunity to have a look at any pending, you validate them before you upload them, just make sure they've said what you want them to say, and then you can upload them onto your profile. But as I say, try and go through a process of getting perhaps a new one every 6 months or so. Okay, so that's really about profile optimization. What I want to move on to now is how you grow your network. So the obvious ways, yeah, think about who I've met this week, who I'm going to meet next week, who I've and do your homework every week to make sure that you connect to all of those contacts that you've made throughout that given week. Obviously, when you go into LinkedIn, it will always give you suggestions of who you could be connecting to. And that comes down to a discipline and a process every week to say, I need to build my connections. I need to show the people that I'm seeing next week that I'm interested in them before I get there, yeah, and go and view their profile and ask them to connect with you on LinkedIn. So that's the simplest thing. Often that can be quite limited. Yeah, it depends on how active you are in your own BD. If you want to build your connections faster than that, as I mentioned before, LinkedIn's got millions of profiles. So what you can start to do is to say, well, who is my target audience? What industry sector are they in? What sort of businesses would make good clients for me? What sort of individuals would make good clients for me? And start using LinkedIn as a database building tool. So I'll show you an example here. I'm going to put myself in the position that I have a remit to build connections with managing directors of businesses in a particular industry sector in London. Yeah, so that's a very simple search, you'd think, yeah. So the way to do this is to say, right, I want managing directors first of all. So put it in quote marks, yeah. That I'm after people with the job title of managing director, yeah. And if I just search on that to start off with, it's going to give me millions. Yeah. So if I search on people, yeah, I've got 3 million potential people to connect with the title of managing director. So you want to filter this down a little bit now. You don't want people that you're connected to in the first because you're already connected to them. So I'm looking at people on the free version of LinkedIn. I'm not using premium today, that I can actually connect with as a result of doing this database build. So let's just look at those that I've got a second degree connection with first of all. Yeah. And then I'm going to filter a bit more to say, well, I only want London. Okay, so you're now starting to hone down the activity. You can then start to filter even further. So at the moment, I've got London, I've got second degree connections, which allows me to actually connect with them, as you can see here. Yeah, I could say I only want them from a specific industry sector. So let's say, oh, I can't see what I want on here. Let's add an industry and we'll put in here manufacturing. Yeah, so it's quite wide. Could filter that down a bit more, but let me just go for manufacturing to start off with. And if I just go up here, give me my results. So what I've got now are people I can connect to who are managing directors in London of a manufacturing business. Yeah, it's still a lot, and I might want to hone that down even more. Yeah, I've got 100 pages of connections here. And I might filter that down into something that's very specific within the manufacturing. I might just go for motor or whatever that might be. But you've now in a position where you can start to connect. It is a manual process. You can't do bulk connections unless you're using some automation tools, which again, I'll talk about later. But I've got a nice database to start working on here that allows me to start building connections with people who don't know me, yeah, but I'd like to talk to. If you go to connect, you've got the ability to add a note to your invitation. If you send without a note, that individual is just going to get a message to say, Joe Edwards wants to connect with you. They've got to go and look at your profile and find out who you are and what you do and may or may not accept that invitation. Again, I'm just going to go back to my slides for 1 second because there's a message that I use which tends to work. And it's this one. So I personalize the LinkedIn message to say, I hope you're well, use their name. Yeah, and give them a reason for connecting. It's not that I want to sell to you. I'm looking to build a network with other professionals who are active on LinkedIn. Yeah, and if they are active on LinkedIn, that's a nice non-combative message that will hopefully get them to respond to. So I'll give you a second because you might want to write that one down. And we'll go back into LinkedIn. Okay. Other ways of growing your network are to piggyback what I would call centers of influence or your competition. So I'll give you an example here. If I wanted to, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a solicitor for a minute. So let's imagine Palmer Solicitors. If there's anybody from Palmer's on this call, they're a client of mine. They'll be quite happy for me showcasing you. Yeah. So let's go into Palmer Solicitors. And I'll view as a member. Okay. Now, because this is a business, I can't see who their followers are. Yeah, so that's not much help to me. But what I can do is have a look at their people or their posts. So on posts, for example, I might want to go and have a look at who's commenting on their posts, who's liking their posts, who's reposting, and connect to those people. Unless they're other members of the Palmer's team, I might want to go and check out who the likes and comments are, just make sure that they are actually businesses that I would want to connect to or individuals that I want to connect to. But that's piggybacking off your competitors' followers. What you can also do is go and have a look at the people in the firm. And I could search their employees. So I know they have a partner there called Ricky. And he won't mind me trampling all over his profile. Okay. Now, what I can look at here is, well, he's made his connections visible. Yeah, so that's great for me. I can go and have a look at who he's connected to, and let's hope that 50% of those might be potential clients of Palmer's, and I might want to go and introduce myself to them. The other thing I can look at is Ricky's posts, and again, look at who is liking and sharing, who's reposting, and pick up on that and invite those individuals to connect to me. So that's competition. You may have some views on whether you want to do that or not. Depends how aggressive you want to be. One of the other things to think about is centres of influence. So if you have, for example, a remit to build up, connections of small businesses in your location, for example, there may be members of a centre of influence like this, which is the Federation of Small Businesses. So again, you can't see their connections because it's a business, but I can go and look at the posts and I can see who's liking, who's commenting, who's resharing. And if they are businesses that sit within my remit, then I would want to go and connect to them. So it's just ways of finding quality connections rather than just anybody and everybody. Okay. I have a rule of thumb on connections on LinkedIn. I don't have thousands and thousands of followers. I've got about 1,600 followers. And the reason mine is quite low compared to a lot of other individuals on LinkedIn is I'm very ruthless about who I allow to be a follower, sorry, to be a connection. And that is they either have to be a client, a potential client, or a referrer of work. And if you don't meet that criteria, I generally don't accept the connection. Now, that's my criteria. That doesn't have to be your criteria, but I think about the content that you're putting out needs to be relevant and relatable to the audience that you're targeting. And if that audience isn't a client, potential client, referrer of work, the question is why they're receiving your information. And it helps you manage your database more effectively. One thing to show you on your database, if I just go to my network. Okay, so I've got some outstanding invitations. I need to go and have a look at whether they meet my criteria, and then I'll accept them if they are. I'll ignore them if they're not. They don't get a message to say that I've ignored them. They just never get the Joe's connected message. But on my connections, for example, here, because I've got first connections, it means I can message them directly. If you're using the premium version of LinkedIn, it allows you to do bulk messaging, which is really useful. And from time to time, I might want to do a bit of housekeeping. If they no longer sit in that category, I might want to remove the connection. And again, when you do that, they don't get a message saying you just diss them, basically. They just disappear from your database, and you will disappear as a first connection for them. One of the questions I do get asked as well is about, and it's usually from the marketing teams at firms, is how do I get individuals connections to follow the company page? So again, on the free version of LinkedIn, and I'll just show you how to do this rather than me waffling on. On the free version of LinkedIn, every individual profile connected to the company page, so that's all of your employees because they'll have the same email address, has 250 credits every month that allow them to go and select people to invite to follow the company page. When they've selected them, there'll be a message that appears in that individual's inbox to say, you've been invited to follow JE Consulting. Yeah, not all will, but about 40% generally will accept that. And the way to do this is you go to analytics on your company page, click on followers. Yeah. And then what you want to do here is grow your followers, invite connections. So if I click on that now, it'll bring up my database because I'm using my profile. Yeah. And I can start inviting people. And I've got 250 of those every month. So if you are part of the marketing team within your business, you might want to encourage your active LinkedIn users to go and use those credits every month and build up the following on your page rather than relying just on organic content to drive that. Okay, I'm just going to go back to my slides for a minute. I've got some things to share. Okay. So what I've just shown you might sound like hard work. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. You know, if you're serious about this, you have to get serious about being disciplined in how you use LinkedIn. I have a daily routine on LinkedIn, which is try and connect. Okay, I'm putting myself in the role of, you know, business development. I need to generate new clients. I need to be more proactive with the connections that I've made. So connect with 50 targets a day. That might be a tough ask for a lot of you, but using that database creation tool that I showed you earlier on, when we found the managing directors, you can connect to 50 people in about 10 minutes once you've pulled your list together. So if you've got a remit to find new clients, yeah, that's a 10 minutes well spent in my view. Using the message that I sent, that I showed you, you'll get a 40 to 70% acceptance rate on those that you've asked to connect with you. So that gives you 400 to 700 new connections every month. Yeah. That's your connection building routine. I then have what I call the daily magic 10. And this is easily done if you've got the LinkedIn app on your phone, is to go in and in your news feed, yeah, comment, like, share, and repost or post your own content every day. And by commenting, liking, sharing, posting, and using the notifications tool where people have changed jobs or have got a work anniversary and congratulating them, you're keeping yourself incredibly active on LinkedIn and engaging with those that you've connected with, and making yourself, yeah, visible. And visibility is everything on LinkedIn. You've got to be present on here to actually start winning work and referrals as a result of your activity. So the Daily Magic 10, I tend to do on my app. Usually if I'm waiting in reception for a meeting to start, or I'm sitting on Zoom or Teams waiting for a meeting to start, or the dinner's cooking in the evening. Yeah, that's my LinkedIn Daily Magic 10 time. Yeah, so 3 comments, 3 likes, 3 shares, 1 post, and get into the discipline of doing that. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't make it every day. Sometimes I have to catch up a bit on a Friday. Yeah, but build it into your working pattern. Okay, I'm going to just move off LinkedIn for a few minutes and just talk about using LinkedIn for building your personal brand. So this is all about the brand of you. So I'm just going to close down LinkedIn for 1 second. There we go. Right. So what we're looking at here is creating or building that personal brand and building and creating engaging content. And the ultimate goal in this is to become a unicorn in a sea of donkeys. Now, I'm going to caveat this a little bit because, you know, a struggling freelancer on LinkedIn can become a global entrepreneur in about 20 minutes if they're clever with their profile copy. I think authenticity on LinkedIn is absolutely vital. Yeah, make it real, and make the content and what you're doing on LinkedIn just wholly relevant to you and who you are and what you want to be known for. So we're working in an incredibly competitive space now, as I'm sure you all recognise. Yeah, and there are benefits in relation to personal branding, and I think we can take a bit of a steer from some of the big brands that are in the market at the moment. You brand yourself every day unknowingly, you know, whether you're a Starbucks girl or a Nike guy, or, you know, that Mont Blanc pen, for example, or the Rolex, yeah, the I made it status symbols. But I think every day we're branded, and you've got to take a lesson from some of the big brands in terms of how you put yourself out there. So I'm just steer that back for a minute, and think about what are the 3 R's of personal branding. For me, they're recognition, reputation, and respect. And if you set those as your core pillars of personal branding, you then got to look at how you produce content that fits. So recognition, first of all, is being in a nutshell, instantly seen as the go-to specialist in your niche without really having to convince everyone. People like familiar faces. The brain relaxes when it sees a familiar face, but kicks into high alert if something's out of place. So a consistent message and a brand story for yourself that's easily retellable becomes really important when you're building that brand. It might be a bit boring to you in some respects, but it's possibly the first time that your prospects have seen it, and be mindful of that. We then look at reputation. So this is, I guess, hinging really off the back of the fact that word of mouth is always going to be your best form of marketing in professional services. I still hold true to this, that most professional service firms should be generating 80% of their new work through referrals, whether they come from clients or introducers, professional contacts. It's always going to be your best source of new client work. And if you're not getting referrals, it's generally because A, you're not doing a particularly good job, or you're not asking for them. So reputation is important. Yeah, it's a third-party endorsement, lasts forever, spreads like wildfire. Yeah. So you need to make sure that you've given, your fans in effect, the right words to use when they talk about you. So think about what you want to be known for, what comes to mind first. And then respect. This is all about setting your trust currency. The level of respect that people have for your expertise correlates directly with how much they're willing to pay for it. I've mentioned the authentic brand. People make decisions now on authenticity and a respected brand, and that comes down to you as an individual having that respected brand. So how does that link back to LinkedIn? Well, that's about giving you advice for free, tips, tools, speaking, providing helpful comments, sharing thought leadership articles, posting interesting videos. Yeah. Your first job really is to understand where you sit at the moment. And I liken this to the 5 levels of visibility. So you've got, first of all, resident experts. So you may well be respected within your firm and by your clients, but you've got little visibility outside of those audiences. And most people start their kind of personal brand journey here. You then got to climb the ladder. So you go from a resident expert to a local hero. So this is becoming known outside of your firm, perhaps being more active in your local business communities, speaking at business functions, blogging, and perhaps even bringing a bit more new business into the firm. And LinkedIn is a great platform to put that content out and share what you're doing, where you've been speaking, and so on. Rising star is the next step. So this is where you're developing more of a regional reputation, fairly well known amongst the peers in your area, speak frequently, write frequently on your area of expertise. And now you start to bring in higher quality business, and you can start to leverage higher fees as a result of that. And then we go to industry rock stars. So known perhaps nationally for your niche area of expertise. Individuals in this category will attract premium clients and premium fees. And as a result, they generally become significant assets to their firm as well. And then the highest level, in my view, perhaps is global superstar. So world elite, broken out of the niche, become recognised more broadly in the industry, command the highest fees, and people want to be associated. All I would say is, before you go jumping from resident expert to global superstar, just keep in mind that every step on this requires more effort and time than the step below it. It's easier to go from resident expert to local hero than jump to industry rock star on day one. Fairly impossible. But also bear in mind that a fee earner sitting at resident expert at the moment, if they get to rising star, can generally charge 13 more times than they are at the moment in their fees. So building that personal brand has a direct financial outcome. And then, what tools really work? We did an analysis across, our own client base when it came to personal branding actions that we were pulling together. If that client's written a book, a great asset to build that personal brand. But simple things like blogs, articles, you know, regular columns, etc., being asked to give commentary to journalists. All of these things help, and showcasing them on LinkedIn is all part of that process. So you've got to think about content of how you're going to gain attention, you know, turning what you've written into something that you know, rules. Yeah. It falls into 3 buckets generally. Content that is there to teach and educate, share your knowledge, could be explaining a tricky aspect of the law or a tricky aspect of tax, breaking it down into a recent update, maybe legislation's changed, offer a practical tip. The second piece of second bucket is social proof. So this is where you have to showcase the value of what you do. So share client wins, testimonials, case studies, significant milestones. And then finally, you've got the make it personal aspect with sharing who you are. So this could be more personal content about where you've been. It could even be something as, you know, sharing a thought that you had on your dog walk in the morning or at the gym in the morning, whatever those things might be. People generally don't want to know what you've had for lunch. We've all fallen into that trap. But personal content is generally 5 times more engaging than teach and educate, surprisingly. Yeah, so you've got to mix it up a bit. And there are engagement boosters. Remember, power of creative writing is about short sentences, make things easy to read. Best time of day to post on LinkedIn, Monday to Friday between 9:30 and 10, or between 5:30 and 6 p.m. are the peak viewing times on LinkedIn. Use lots of bright colours. You're going to have to go off-brand, yeah, a little bit in terms of what your posts look like. And LinkedIn isn't a platform that likes lots of hashtags. My rule of thumb is 3 hashtags on a post, no more than that, and make them relevant to the content that you've written. And particularly if it's something that's trending, you want to pick up on the trending hashtag. I've got a couple of minutes. I just want to show you some examples of content that can generally be a little bit more engaging. So I'm just going to stop my share here. Again, I'm hoping you can see this. So this is just one of ours. We did a couple of posts here for an event that we're running for accountants on the 3rd of June. I'll give you a slide at the end, just if anybody wants to register for the event. But we started off the promotion of this event with a post like this, which is using a tool called Powtoon, which allows you to create nice animations really, really easily. Now, I'm no techie, and I can produce stuff like this on Powtoon. You can also produce it on Canva. Yeah. So we keep it simple, ready for something new, 15 spaces, 5 speakers, 1 room. Yeah. And we made it look as if we were having a WhatsApp chat. And then your second one is where registration has opened. Yeah. And again, there are lots and lots of tools that you can use to create engaging animations. I've mentioned Powtoon and Canva. There's also others like Giphy, for example. And video will always gain more attention than, well, I say video, animation and video will always gain more attention than written content. Link to written content by all means. So if you've produced a really useful blog or white paper, promote it with a moving image on LinkedIn, but then link to the actual content itself rather than posting the whole thing on LinkedIn. There are tools now as well where you can create video avatars. This does go a little bit against everything I've just said about being authentic, but again, I'm used to working with professional firms. I'm used to the challenge of getting partners and fee earners to engage in actually producing video, and it's never that great, and it's always hard to produce unless you've got a professional videographer coming in. There are tools now like HeyGen and 11 Labs that allow you to produce video avatars. You create the video avatar, and again, I'll just very quickly show this to you because I'm aware of my time. So this has been produced using HeyGen. So I collared one of my co-directors. What you do is you upload about 2 minutes of video to HeyGen, and this could be you could just be reading out your shopping list or talking about your children or your dog. It doesn't matter what you're talking about, it's irrelevant. All it's looking for is to replicate your voice and your natural movement. So I asked Callum to give me 2 minutes of his shopping list for the week, which he did. And then I gave him a script, I then uploaded it to HeyGen, and I inputted a written script. So I'll just play this very quickly.
Hi, Sam. This is Callum from J Consulting. Hope business is going well. We want to try a fun project using AI and wondered if you would be up for it. The end goal would be to create a video just like this one. Yes, this is an AI-generated video, so as much as it looks and sounds like me, it isn't. Let me know if it is something you would be interested in, and we'll get in touch with more information.
Yeah, so pretty scary. Yeah, but it is a great way of getting video introductions to your blogs and your useful guides, thought leadership content, and giving a video introduction to it. Okay, I did mention the control room of being an event we're running on the 3rd of June. So just before we head on to the Q&A, I'm going to shamelessly do a pitch for this. This is an event just for accountants at the moment. We're doing a legal one later in the year, which will follow the similar vein. If you'd like to register it, we have only got 15 places available for this event. It's in London. We're holding it at the K3 Hub in London. So you can scan the QR code, and we are running a first come, first served on this. So please have a look. We've got some great speakers lined up for the afternoon, and it will be a really interesting roundtable session, I hope. Okay, I think at this point I'm going to recognise it's 9:53 and go back to Marie and see if we've got any questions. I hope you found it useful.
Thank you very much, Jo. That was a fabulous canter through LinkedIn and personal branding, and I think one or two people have shared my thoughts around a terrifying AI Callum, which I'm sure that he's aware of that. Anyway, right, we've had questions come in advance for you, and we've got quite a few that have come in during the session. So I'm going to mix them up, and I am conscious that we have only a fairly short period of time now. So if we don't get to your questions, I will pass them on to Jo. She will come back to you after the session. So let's jump right in. So Mark has asked, is it possible to save a list you've created for connection building?
Yes, but you need premium to do it. So if you've got the free version, you can generate your list and you can start connecting. You need premium to save it and export it.
Okay, lovely. We've got quite a few people asking for slides. So we said up front we weren't going to share those, but I think, Jo, you will probably be in touch with our delegates in the coming days. Perhaps you can make some arrangements there. And a few people said that they were late, so we are going to share this recording on the Quantum and the K3 Hub websites. Could be even as early as later on today, if not Monday. I think Mark also talked about video not being on the critical list of tools. We have just covered video, but Mark's asked, is video best used on other platforms and not LinkedIn? Any views there?
I think video is relevant to all platforms now. Yeah, video and animation. Yeah, you've got to stand out. The only thing to bear in mind when you're posting on LinkedIn, so you post a video or a reel, it is the same thing, but you have to do it in portrait, not landscape, otherwise it won't work very well. So video portrait, and it will automatically appear and display either as a video or as a reel, however you want that done.
Okay. Ellie's asked, would you recommend paying for Canva, and do you have to pay for Powtoon?
Okay, so both platforms have a free version. I think if you're going to use it regularly, I would pay, because the professional version is so much more easier to use. You've got far more functionality with it, and it allows you to create from your own image libraries as well, which is really helpful. So we use the professional version and I recommend it. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, we use that over here as well. There's a lot of people asking for a list of the various apps and tools that you've talked about through today's session, perhaps you can just include those in any follow-up that you do. So moving on to a few other questions then. So how selective should you be when accepting the connection request? Now, we have talked about this and your own sort of personal guidance, but any sort of general guidance for delegates?
It depends what your end goal is. When you think about connections, I mentioned my rule of thumb. I'm quite ruthless about it because I don't want thousands of connections that are completely irrelevant to me. I think if I was, if I was in a BD role where I need to be targeting, 4,000 or 5,000 business owners all the time, then I've got a different remit on how selective I am. But I also don't want people filling up my message inbox with lots of irrelevant stuff either, and the ability to direct message me without email because they're connected to me creates lots of spam, which I don't like. But I think your audience and your connections are one and the same thing. Why am I here? Who am I posting it to? And making your content relevant and relatable. And if that audience is not relevant and relatable, then you shouldn't be connecting with them.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. You've done your shameless plug. I'm just going to do a very shameless plug for a couple of or a few of the forthcoming CPD sessions that we're running over the next month or so here at the Hub. So we've got topics include understanding the accounting requirements of LLPs, calculating inheritance tax and commercial property taxes, which is always super popular. Do look out for the invites. They'll be sent out via email to you all. And we'll also be adding the registration details onto LinkedIn. So do get involved with those. So Joe, last question then in that case. So this is a question that's come in advance from Michael. So I would be grateful to get an understanding of automation tools we can use to maximize impact.
Okay. So you need to get your pens ready at this point. There's a tool called Impasto. So the website is impasto.io, Impasto. That's a tool, you have to pay for it, but it helps you automatically build connections. So you can set your criteria and then do bulk connections through it. There are other tools which help you schedule content when it goes out and helps you define the hashtags that should go with it on what's trending. We use Hootsuite, but there are other tools like Buffer and Sprout Social, which I'd recommend. Sprout's also got what I call a social listening tool on there. So if you want to be constantly scouring LinkedIn where people are looking for advice, like on R&D, for example, it will pull that up and then you can automatically comment on it. And then you've got other automation tools that link to your CRM. So things like Soho and HubSpot have good API with LinkedIn. So those are just some of them, but there are lots more. But for me, I think if you're trying to do it as an individual, those are probably the key ones.
Lovely. Okay, so I guess we're virtually out of time. So just as we wish everyone a great weekend, and just before we close the session, Joe, any final thoughts or comments from you before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would like to make an offer to delegates. I mean, obviously, I've shown the control room, but we're often asked to run this session for a firm, and we do it virtually like this for an hour, where they can bring as many of their firm along on Zoom or Teams, and we run this session and we can tailor it to make it relevant to the type of work that the firm's looking for, especially when it comes to database building. So we'll follow up with an email afterwards with the slides, with a list of the tools, and also we'll do a special price for any of the K3 Hub members that want to do this session for their firm if they found it useful today.
Super. Right. Well, thank you very much, Joe, then in that case. Thank you to everybody that's joined us today. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for the invite.